Now, here's where it gets kind of sketchy. I started asking about this over budget, and of course, at this point, all the aldermen are just angry at me. They don't want to give me the time of day. There was a very big deal made about that not being over budget. I have this recording that was made during a kind of a secret meeting that they had that they discussed my Freedom of Information Act request, and both the former fire chief and the city clerk were extremely upset over that one, what I would consider almost a minor part of the big picture of all the FOIA requests that I've made. And that's trying to find out about why the community center, the aquatic center, was over budget. So let's listen to a part of the secret meeting that the Ozark City Council had back in April 2018. The voice you're going to hear is the reporter from the Spectator, the local newspaper. She's colluding with city government to suppress information. Not only that, former Fire Chief Kevin Eveld, who has absolutely no business even being at this meeting, he interjects himself into the situation and admonishes both the reporter and the alderman for allowing information to get out. And if that wasn't bad enough, the city attorney is advising them on how to suppress free speech, and Alderman Susan Holman sees the whole thing as just aggravating. So let's take a listen to this secret meeting from April of last year.
Do you think it would be helpful if I didn't quote him?
I do. I think he's fueled by that.
I mean, that's withholding information, so I can't, but I can see
You can
where this
just
is
play
going.
it down. Just play it down that Steve made a comment.
Do you have to mention him by name? You say a citizen.
Yeah, that's what you should do.
Citizen.
A
a citizen and not put his name. Mark doesn't say his name.
Yeah.
And I'm not making the comparison, don't take me
I
wrong.
think that
But
that's
Mark
part of it.
does
He
not.
likes his name in the paper.
Oh, okay. So, okay. Well, that would be because it seems just from.
And I will tell the council, I was accosted by 2 people last week, citizens, that said, how much did the community center go over budget? Because I saw it in the paper that it went over budget.
And that was a lie. That's
I
not
said, no,
true.
it did not. That was a comment by somebody else. It did not. So that's the kind of information that gets out because of that. So,
What did I say in the paper?
Oh, well, that Steve said it.
Steve said it.
He said that we went over budget.
Oh, okay. And okay.
So I don't even know where he's gathering that information, to say that we went over budget. He doesn't know what we've talked about for the last 2 years trying to get this project off the ground.
I just think what I'm stressing here is we got to be real careful about complying and compliance. And just because some of us question the motives, he's asking questions he's entitled to answer.
I know, and that's why I'm ready to do it.
I know you know, even though it's
aggravating.
And what's he gonna? Is he honestly gonna read all of this?
Probably.
he might have time to, but I'll tell you, I would strongly recommend that he not read it at a city council meeting if that's what he's angling for.
What do you mean?
Well, just trying to get up there with records and saying, look what I found on this date and this.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Well, that's not. That stuff wouldn't be considered on the agenda, so we
It
couldn't
would only
go
be under
there.
public input, so he would have.
right.
But he would get to the point, if he had it, he would request to be on the agenda.
But
Yeah.
I
we
can
would
see
have to
that.
see if it's a legitimate request or if
Right.
it's.
But I'm saying he would
I
get
know.
to that point.
Well, the other night,
I didn't just come up with that phrase over budget. I heard it at the January regular city council meeting. That's where those words were first put in my ear. I didn't just dream that up. But as I said, those two people were making a colossal deal about it not being over budget. Now, I don't know if it's his pride because he was the project manager and she was keeping the books on it, or what's going on there, but all I know is they were really focused in on that statement. To me, that was not the primary focus of all of the FOIA requests that I made. It was one part. Something doesn't have to be illegal to be wrong, but what I do know is that the money that was being spent was wrong. Your city council literally protected people that were blowing through taxpayer dollars. And when I took this information to my alderman, and not only did they not listen, but they actively worked to keep that information from getting out to you. So I'm making this video because times have changed and the tide has turned, and people are looking at this situation a little differently than they did back on June 21st when we had an emergency meeting to address the first video that I made. When we go back to that meeting, there's a couple of things that stand out. The anger and animosity that was directed at me simply because the people in charge did not want you to know what I had found out, and they did not want me to be right. Now, we could get into analyzing this pretty deeply, and maybe there's more reasons why they were so angry. But after a year, over a year of being involved with Freedom of Information Act requests and looking into the workings of my hometown, one thing stands out. People really don't want to hear the truth. And that's been really disturbing to me, because all along I thought I was doing the right thing. Wasn't doing anything bad. There was no vendetta. There wasn't anything personal about this with anything I did to anybody. This was simply about some things not being right. And I guess what I should say is that things weren't just not right, they were decidedly wrong. Now, one of the things were these shirts. And so what he says is, well, of course I spent all this money on shirts because I'm taking care of my guys. And nobody would argue with that. Of course they wouldn't. But the reason that was set up that way was to make me look foolish, to make me look like I had some sort of axe to grind, and to make him out to be a white knight. The truth is, there were shirts bought for his men. They were t-shirts. So I wasn't able to talk about the nearly $1,000 worth of shirts that were bought for one man in 2017. Now, nobody gets this kind of a uniform allowance. Most people who work for a living that are required to wear a uniform, they don't get much money at all. Nurses, firemen, policemen, janitors. There's all kinds of people that have to wear uniforms to work. But that's not what we had in the Ozark Volunteer Fire Department with the former fire chief. $200 pairs of boots year after year. Literally thousands of dollars worth of clothing for himself. And instead of your leadership calling him out on that and holding him accountable, they turned on me. We get to this emergency meeting in June, and they were making statements about me at the beginning of the meeting that simply were not true. Ms. Hall started this meeting by saying that I had called the city council, and this is a quote, blatant idiots. Folks, I don't do things like that. I never said those words. I don't say words like that. I've never called them any names. It was just another link in the chain of statements and actions and deeds to get you to not listen to me. I knew I hadn't said that, and I wanted the recording of what I had said from the December and November regular city council meetings. And then I got to thinking about it. Well, in January, that's when they mentioned this thing about being over budget, and I can pull that audio clip up and present it to you so you'll know the truth. These are audio recordings are done by the city clerk, and they take place at every meeting. They're a record of what actually happened, not her interpretation of it. And if you've ever read the city's minutes, they're unprofessional and they're simply an interpretation of what she thought happened. And most of them are so ridiculous that they read more like a high school girl's diary than they actually do an official document of a city in Arkansas. They're terribly unprofessional. So I wanted those recordings. Now, again, these are official documents. The recording's considered an official record of the city and cannot be destroyed. They're gone. So what do we do about that? What do we do about a guy spending $1,000 on shirts? What do we do about this aquatic center and not knowing how much it cost? What do we do about all of the things that have come out from this audit? So what do we do about these things? Because you see, in my book, someone that's spending thousands of dollars on clothing, that should have been misappropriation of funds. It was the job of your alderman and your mayor to see that justice was served on that. And instead of justice being served for somebody spending that kind of money, they just tried to make me out to be a bad guy. Well, now the audit's out. And the audit says that I was right. I have quite a bit of confidence in our new mayor that she's going to get to the bottom of this. In order for justice to be served, the city council and the mayor are going to have to retract the opinion they held last June at the emergency meeting. You see, they're going to have to admit that I was right and that they let their anger and hatred of me cloud their judgment. They let people get away with bad behavior just to save face. You see, the audit has confirmed what I've been saying for a year. People were wasting money. People were spending taxpayer dollars on things they never should have been spending money on. And instead of holding people accountable, the city council and the mayor let it go. I'll say it again, as I said in another video. The city clerk and former fire chief from 2014 through 2017 spent over $11,000 just on hotel rooms. It's not right. And that doesn't count the fact that the city was paying for every one of these certifications that most employers don't pay for. Your membership into clubs and organizations. They don't pay for certifications. They don't pay for your continuing education. They don't pay for your vacations that you're taking while your wife lounges at the swimming pool. It was wrong. And it should have been wrong back in June. It should have been wrong back in April when I brought this to the alderman. But they hid it and they kept it from you. So I made the video, and instead of responding in a positive way to that video, they responded in the way they did. So now we have to go back to that point, and I hope Ms. Hall takes the right road on this, because there is a right road and there's a wrong road, and people who spent money, your taxpayer dollars, need to be held accountable. Once again, it looks like I may be running a little bit long, so I'm going to break this up and I'm going to stop right here, and I'll post the next video very soon. So stay tuned for the conclusion of this little story. Thank you for watching.